I'm Chuck. Welcome to the St. George Theater here on Staten Island. It's beautiful. It's an honor to have you all here for the state of the city. In a moment, you'll be hearing a speech from the mayor and my good friend. And, yes, he is my good friend. Cut that out. I know what you're talking about. He's my good friend, Mike Bloomberg. But first, they've asked me to introduce some wonderful local talent. They're going to sing a song that was written in 1929, the year the theater was built. Please welcome Hell of a Choir. They're called Hell of a Choir. They're terrific.
I am Doreen Cunyo, Executive Director here at the St. George Theater.
And I'm Luann Sorrentino, the Chief Financial Officer. And not only do we run this place, but we're sisters. Can you tell?
We're very excited to welcome you all here today. This past year, we've welcomed some really big talent. We've had Liza Minnelli, Tony Bennett, and today, now, Mayor Mike Bloomberg. The St. George Theater was built in 1929 as a showcase for celebrities and motion pictures. And on December 4th, opening night, we had Blossom Seeley and Benny Fields here performing. I don't remember them. My mom did, and maybe some of our choir members do. Over the years, we've had concerts, ballets, movies, and musicals. Matter of fact, my sister starred in one when she was 11.
And I was terrific. But in the 1970s, the theater fell on hard times. Ill attempts were made to reinvent the space. They made it a nightclub, an antique showcase, and believe it or not, a roller rink. But eventually, the theater was padlocked, and a passerby would never know the rich history behind those gates. The only ones finding comfort in the theater at that time were the birds and the raccoons.
For years, the theater was left to ruins, until our mom, better known on Staten Island as Mrs. Rosemary for teaching dance for 50 years, stepped into the picture. She could feel the magic in this place. She had a passion for this theater. She grew up in this theater, and for many years, she would have her annual dance recitals here. So when the developer approached her to take this theater over, and despite many people telling her, you're getting in over your head, she took a deaf ear. She knew it was important. So she took on the challenge. And who would think it would take 3 ladies to get the job done?
So we created a nonprofit organization. We rolled up our sleeves and we began the work to bring life back into this theater. And like everything else in life, the road hasn't always been easy. At first, there were no lights, there were no seats, there was no heat, there were no air conditioning. There were just giant holes in the ceiling where the rain would come through. And what's more, no one wanted to come into this neighborhood at night.
But nothing was going to stop us. When our mom was diagnosed with cancer in 2008, she was determined that we succeed. I remember one day, we were with her. She was coming out of surgery, and my sisters and I were right by her side. We knew she was going to be okay. She opened her eyes, she smiled, whispered firmly, "Get back to work."
And now the neighborhood is bustling, the restaurants are packed, and local business owners call us to say thank you.
And we have many thanks to give the Department of Cultural Affairs, the Mayor's Office, our Borough President, our Board of Directors. Without their help, this 82-year-old story will not have a happy ending.
Maybe they should turn it into a musical starring Blossom Seeley and Benny Field's grandchildren.
And you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We hope that you come back and see us real soon. We have an amazing lineup of shows coming your way, from Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross to Tracy Morgan. But now, we have some future stars, led by Anthony Scuderi. Please help us welcome PS 29's Kids Choir, right here in Staten Island. Weren't they terrific? Great job. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor and the privilege to introduce to you our neighbor, our friend, our borough president, Jim Molinaro.
Thank you, Doreen. Good afternoon and welcome. Isn't this a beautiful theater? Doreen and Luann, thank you for doing what you did to save it. 10 years ago, I decided to run for borough president. And on the campaign trail, I met a young man who was running for mayor. And together we set out to get elected, much to the surprise of many and the disappointment of others. But that's the political system. 2 months after the horrendous tragedy that happened on 9/11, we were elected. And the mayor said to me very clearly, and to the other borough presidents, I want to restore the glory of New York City. And he did. At a time when finances were very low, with a deficit of about $6 billion. People were afraid to come to New York City as tourists. He restored it. He gave us hope. And here on Staten Island, over the last 8 years, I've been able to build 7 schools, 2,700 school seats, hundreds of acres of parks we created, blue belts, and so forth and so on. And the most remarkable thing that the mayor has done, he was wise enough to put away some money during the good times, so our deficit is not as bad as it would be. It's only $2.5 billion, would have probably been $7 billion. But what he has done, as he restored New York City, well, let me ask you, 48 million people spend their vacation in New York City each year. That's restoring New York City and the confidence in the city. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to introduce Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon, and welcome. First, let me thank the Borough President for those kind words, and also Sisters Doreen and Luann for opening the St. George to us today. There's not much that Liza Minnelli, Tracy Morgan, and I have in common, but someday we can all say we appeared on this famous stage. Not together, but sequentially. Actually, you'll be happy to know the first movie to ever play here back in 1929 was called So This Is College. Wasn't college the way I remember it, but nevertheless. And for those who haven't seen it, which is probably everyone here, here's the synopsis. Biff and Eddie are best friends and star teammates on the football team. Then a flapper named Babs enters the picture. Biff and Eddie start competing for Babs, and the rivalry affects their ability to play football together. Fortunately, the coach is able to mediate just in time to win the big game. Now, I don't know if there's a great message in that film for us today, but I do like the ending, because at no time has it been more important for us to put aside rivalries and focus on what's truly important, winning the big game. Of course, I am talking about the Jets winning the AFC Championship game on Sunday. Go Jets! Last year, when we gathered together to consider the state of our city, I spoke of the twin challenges that we faced: creating jobs in the midst of a national economic downturn and balancing our budget in a way that protected vital services and taxpayers. And I'm glad to report today that over the past 12 months, we have met both of those challenges. And we've met them better than almost any other city in the nation. As to the first of those two challenges, I said we'd lead the nation in job growth, and you know what? We have. We have created jobs at nearly twice the national rate, and compared to the rest of the state, our job creation rate is 8 times as high. Jobs bring hope and opportunity, independence and security, and creating them is our job number one. Now, too many New Yorkers are still struggling to find work, and our unemployment rate is still too high. But over the past year, we have added 51,000 private sector jobs in industries with average salaries between $35,000 and $92,000. For instance, last year, we passed Boston in venture capital funding in technology, putting us ahead of every place but Silicon Valley. As Jim mentioned, we also had a big year in tourism. In spite of fierce competition from cities all around the world, the number of people employed in tourism hit a record high here. For the second straight year, we remained America's #1 tourist destination. And with growth occurring in many other industries, unemployment in New York City is down from a year ago. Commercial vacancy rates are down. Home values are up. In fact, for the first time in decades, New York City entered a national recession later than the rest of the country, and now we have come out of it faster and stronger than the rest of the country. But we're not out of the woods yet, not by a long shot. But I will say we sure are heading in the right direction. Our progress is also a result of our success in meeting the second of the two challenges I spoke about last January, and that's managing our budget wisely. City government can't end a national recession, nor can we control the business cycle. But we can shape our own destiny, and we have. We've done it not only by spurring new jobs and growing industries, but by managing our budget to protect the vital services that are so crucial to our economy. We cut crime to record lows. We kept the welfare rolls at historic lows. We've cut fire deaths to their lowest level since before 1919. We raised graduation rates again. They're up 27% over the past 4 years compared to just 3% in the rest of the state. And that means 15,000 students who would not have finished high school if we didn't do it. But they did finish high school. They've earned a diploma that will change their lives for the better. And we've gotten these results by working closely with the City Council and Speaker Chris Quinn to help manage our budget carefully and reduce spending responsibly. Over the past 3 years, we've cut spending 9 different times for a total of $5 billion, including $1.6 billion in cuts this year. Those cuts are our hardest yet, because the impact will be more severe than ever as you get down the chain. Because of unfunded mandates and pension benefits, however, we still face multi-billion-dollar deficits for years to come. And we've got to realize there's no magic wand to make them disappear. There's no rabbit left to pull out of the hat. And there is no windfall coming from Albany or Washington this year. There is only us, our resolve, our courage, and our commitment to the fiscal discipline we have shown over the past 9 years. Now, we have several options before us. We can stop investing in the future and watch the gains we have made in public safety, education, and every other area disappear before our eyes. That's one choice, and it would be an utter disaster. We all know how it turned out in the 70s when we paid for that mistake for decades to come. Yes, the city is far stronger than it was then. Yes, we are far more resilient. Progress, however, is not inevitable. It is up to us to create it. And I guarantee you, we will not walk away from what we have built. We will continue driving progress every single day. Now, another choice would be to raise taxes. But as New Yorkers know all too well, our taxes are already too high, higher than most other places in the country. With the national economy still struggling, and even though job growth here has been strong, raising taxes now would undermine our recovery by driving people and businesses to lower tax cities and states and deterring investment from overseas. So let me be clear. We will not raise taxes to balance the budget. Instead, we will choose a third approach, a smarter approach, an approach that respects the short-term needs of taxpayers and protects the long-term prospects for our economy. We will grow our way out of these tough times by shrinking the costs of government. Now, every mayor who comes into office faces a defining challenge. For Mayor Koch, it was bringing the city back from bankruptcy. For Mayor Dinkins, it was uniting a city torn by racial tension. For Mayor Giuliani, it was proving that New York City could be made safe again. And when I first came into office, I was bringing the city back from the attacks of 9/11 and turning around a broken public school system. We've made enormous progress doing both. And now, a new defining challenge confronts us, forcing government to live within its means by forcing government into the 21st century. I believe we can do it because we must do it. The city's economic future is hanging in the balance. We can look back and continue funding a government operations system that was built for another era, or we can look forward and continue rebounding, continue growing, continue forging ahead and leading the nation. But we can't do both. That's the choice we face. The state of our city is strong, but to remain strong, we must make the right choices. We must embrace the future. If you stand with me, I promise you we will look forward and move forward together. In many ways, this beautiful old theater represents the choice we face. As you heard, for most of the past 30 years, it sat vacant and padlocked, falling apart and fading away. It seemed destined for the wrecking ball until Mrs. Rosemary and her daughters came along. Their vision and passion brought this tarnished treasure back to life and brought new energy and new jobs to the St. George community. I asked Doreen and Lou Ann to sit on stage today, surrounded by some fellow Staten Island business owners. These are the people whose faith and hard work have been responsible for a true recovery, and I wanted them to stand so you can acknowledge them. Stand up. Thank you. That work of transforming the old and making it new, not to recover a bygone past, but to reimagine a brighter future, lies at the heart of the challenges we face this year. We must continue transforming our economy into a more diverse and more dynamic and more durable engine of growth. And to do that, we must transform the way government serves the public and the way it spends the public's money. And today, I'd like to outline our plan for achieving both goals and keeping New York City moving forward. Let's start with how we'll continue to transform our economy into a 21st century energy of innovation. Just as Mrs. Rosemary and her daughters transformed a decrepit old movie house into this spectacular new theater, spurring new jobs and economic opportunities, we must make those transformations across all 5 boroughs, creating new reasons for people and companies to invest their future and their finances in New York. In 2011, the progress we are making transforming old into new will be more visible than ever. Just around the corner from here, we'll begin seeing it at the old Navy home port, abandoned for 20 years. This year, we'll begin turning it into a home park with 800 apartments, shops, and a waterfront walkway. We'll see the transformation across the Narrows at Coney Island, once a sad shadow of yesteryear and long written off by the skeptics, but now drawing record crowds with new amusements and new excitement. This year, we'll break ground on Steeplechase Plaza, and we'll open the new Scream Zone, a one-of-a-kind amusement area that will include a human slingshot, and I'm happy to announce today, Marty Markowitz has volunteered to take the test ride. On Governor's Island, off limits to the public for decades, we'll expand our work to create a one-of-a-kind park in the heart of the harbor. We'll see the transformation at the old piers that are now becoming Brooklyn Bridge Park, with a new carousel will open this year. At the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which we've transformed into one of the country's most successful and greenest urban industrial parks, Steiner Studios, yes, you can apply for that, Steiner Studios will begin to double what's already the largest soundstage and production facilities on the East Coast. And they'll be partnering, I'm happy to say, with Brooklyn College to create the first graduate-level film school of its kind in the region. In Queens, shovels will go into the ground at Hunters Point South. We'll begin transforming long vacant land into a new middle-class development fueled by $2 billion in private investments that will create 4,600 jobs. All along the East River, with support from Speaker Quinn, we'll begin running a new ferry service with stops at Long Island City, Greenpoint, Williamsburg, Dumbo, Wall Street, and 34th Street. At Willets Point, there's some ferry users. At Willets Point, once the inspiration for F. Scott Fitzgerald's Valley of Ashes, we'll begin building roadways and water lines that will give rise to whole new neighborhoods with good jobs and affordable housing. And in the South Bronx, we are transforming an abandoned dead-end street into Hunters Point Landing, new waterfront open space, and a fishing pier next to the bustling fish market. All of these projects are happening because of dedicated civic leaders like the ones joining us here on the stage, so thank you all. Now, all of these projects share something else in common. They lie along the waterfront, and they are part of what is one of the most sweeping transformations of an urban waterfront in American history. Across the city, we are reclaiming our waterfront from decades of decline and disuse, and investing hundreds of millions of dollars to build and expand parks and create jobs. At the same time, though, the green infrastructure plan we've launched last year, with that, we're cleaning our waterways by not spending $2 billion in tanks and tunnels, and instead capturing stormwater before it reaches our sewer system. Saving $2 billion is a very big deal, and this year we'll invite New Yorkers to help us green their communities by launching a new grant program that will empower local civic groups to help us build a more economically sustainable city with projects that are right for their neighborhoods. Together, we will continue transforming the old into new across the city. We'll open the second section of the High Line, once an abandoned eyesore, now the most popular railroad trestle in the world. In the Bronx, we'll join with the Van Cortlandt Park Conservancy to do something that's been talked about for more than a decade. We'll turn unused tennis courts into an ice skating rink open all winter long. We'll also invest in our cultural infrastructure. New homes for the Staten Island Museum and the Whitney Museum. New facilities for the Queens Museum of Art and the Bronx River Arts Center. And the expansion of downtown Brooklyn's cultural district. We'll undertake all of these projects. But at the same time, let's be clear. money is tight, very tight. And it's true, we'll have to reduce our capital spending in areas. Some projects will have to be slowed down. Others may have to be scaled back. Many others will require more private funds. But we won't forget the single most important lesson of the 1970s. When you stop investing in the future hits the road. Jobs, people, capital, they all leave. And we didn't allow that to happen after the attacks of 9/11, and I promise you, we won't allow it to happen now. The investments we are making create more than infrastructure. They create something you can't see or you can't touch. It's that feeling you get when you come to New York, the feeling that anything is possible in this city, that the future happens here first. This feeling of energy and optimism is why our population is growing and why more young people in particular are moving to our city. Many of them come here in search of jobs, but more and more are coming here to start their own businesses right in New York City. Recently, New York was named the #1 city for young entrepreneurs, and that's a great sign for our future, because as much as we are competing with places like London and Hong Kong for private investment, we're competing with places like Boulder and the Bay Area for those college graduates who will attract investment and power the 21st century economy. And we have a few of them with us on stage today, and just let me mention the companies they've started, and then they can stand up and take a bow. There's ZocDoc, a website that makes it easy to find doctors and dentists in your neighborhood, and named by Crain's the #1 place to work in New York City in 2010. There's Energy Hub, which builds electrical and mechanical systems for NASA's Mars missions. Pixable is a photo management website that was the first company to graduate from the small business incubator we started in 2009. Rent the Runway allows you to rent clothes at a 90% discount, making fashion more affordable. Maybe I could pick up a third pair of shoes. Is that possible, you think? And then there's the social networking site that was started around a kitchen table in the East Village, and that now has more than 5 million users, Foursquare. All of these companies have been started in the past few years by young entrepreneurs. All of them are succeeding, and most importantly, all of them are hiring. So thank you very much. Stand up if you would. You should all be prepared to get a few resumes after this talk. Thank you. This year, with Deputy Mayor Bob Steele leading the charge, we'll do more to continue attracting the next generation of industry pioneers. We'll launch business incubators that will hatch more startups in new media, fashion, the arts, and other industries where innovation is key. We'll bring together the leaders in eds and meds, our academic institutions and bioscience firms, to map New York's course to the top in that growth industry. We'll look to partner with a top university to build a new applied science and engineering facility. And we'll fuel the growth of clean energy firms by encouraging new wind and solar power projects. And joining with Columbia, NYU Poly, and CUNY, we'll create a center conducting green business building pioneers to real estate developers and building owners. Of course, the biggest single step we can take to promote innovation in New York City and across this country is to fix our broken immigration system. It's not only hurting national security, it's the most ruinous economic policy you could ever conceive of. It's destroying American jobs every single day. We've got to change it. We are a nation made great by immigrants. And if we are to remain great, we can't turn our back on our history and heritage and our highest values. It's a national issue. It's one, though, that profoundly affects our city's future, a city of immigrants. And that's why I enlisted Rupert Murdoch in creating a national coalition of business leaders and elected officials. And we are going to work with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle to pass sensible, economically smart immigration reform. And pass it this year. We can't wait. Every day, businesses are starting overseas, and we want those businesses here. Industries are being created overseas. If once they get going overseas, we're never going to get them back here, and those could be the industries of tomorrow. We've got to have immigration reform. Let's make it happen. Of course, we won't wait for Washington to act. We'll do what we can on our own. We'll launch a new program to connect immigrant entrepreneurs to the information they need to open small businesses and the loans and expertise they need to grow and expand. We'll also enter into a new partnership with a major bank, Citi, that will get credit flowing to hundreds more qualified small businesses in all 5 boroughs. In addition, a new loan program will offer minority and women-owned businesses access to loans covering their upfront costs when doing business with the city. That's just one way we're going to strengthen efforts that, in just 4 years' time, have nearly tripled the value of city contracts going to MWBE firms. New business assistance programs will help certified MWBE firms and small businesses compete for city jobs. And to help connect growing businesses to the employers they need, we're going to expand our Workforce One career centers. I just stopped by a block ago, just before the speech, at a block away, at one of those that are doing a great job. Last year, as tough as the economy was, our Workforce One centers connected New Yorkers to more than 30,000 jobs, compared to only 500 back in 2005. Now, we wanted to have somebody here that give a good example, that got their job because of it. And one of those is a guy named Enrion Lina, born and raised in the Balkans, arrived in our city 7 months ago. Like so many immigrants before him, he didn't have a job. But thanks to Staten Island's Workforce One Career Center, today he's working in a private investigation firm, steadily improving his income and getting his new life started in a new land. I'd like to introduce him to you, but he couldn't be here. He has to work. This year, we're increasing our goal from 30,000 job placements, which is what we had last year, to 35,000, and we'll reach it by opening 10 new Workforce One centers across the city, including another one right here on Staten Island. We're also setting the goal of placing 10,000 more welfare recipients into jobs, going from 75,000 last year, which was a record, to 85,000 this year. Instead of the city using tax dollars to support them, they'll be paying tax dollars to help support the city. At the same time, we'll help more New Yorkers stay self-sufficient by taking a privately funded pilot program, the one-on-one counseling at our financial empowerment centers, and using public funds to expand those critical services, which will help more residents eliminate their debt and increase their savings. It's a hand up, not a handout, and it's one of the best ways we can keep our welfare rolls down and our neighborhoods strong. One of the biggest employers in New York City is the restaurant industry. And last year, in partnership with Speaker Quinn and the Council, we launched a new business acceleration team to help restaurants cut through red tape and open their doors faster. We've since helped more than 200 new restaurants open up months early, including Big Ben's restaurant on Richmond Terrace. Lorenza and Theodore Ben came here from Trinidad, worked hard and saved, and now they've opened a Caribbean restaurant. I actually hear your chicken roti is delicious, is it? I'm sure it is. Stand up and take a bow. Now, I know what you're wondering. When they got graded by our health department, what'd they get? They got an A. Last year, Health Commissioner Tom Farley implemented a plan that hands out letter grades to every restaurant based on their cleanliness, because the public has a right to know, and because the grades are an incentive to run a clean kitchen. If a restaurant doesn't get an A, it gets re-inspected as an incentive to improve its grade. But a re-inspection can also mean more fines, even if the restaurant finally does get their A. The costs of fines cut into the tight profit margins that small businesses run. So from now on, we'll have added a new incentive. Any restaurant that earns an A either on its initial inspection or its re-inspection will not have to pay 1 penny in fines for any violations found on that inspection. Not one penalty, not 1 penny. This year we'll build on the customer service model we've helped create to cut red tape for restaurants and offer the same services to small retail stores that define our neighborhood's main streets. At the same time, again, working with the council, we'll fundamentally simplify the number of approvals necessary and the means for securing them. I think mom and pop deserve that, don't you? Making it easier for businesses to open and expand is just one part of a broader vision for city government that we call simplicity. It's an effort led by Deputy Mayor Steve Goldsmith, and it's based on the very basic idea that government should be organized around the needs of its customers, and that means taxpayers, businesses, and service users. And over the past year, we've been working to consolidate the city's real estate holdings, reduce our vehicle fleet, and streamline our technology infrastructure and back office operations. By 2014, these steps together will save taxpayers $500 million annually, and that's just the start. Simplicity is about transforming all of city government by modernizing it, by making it smarter, more efficient, and oriented around customers. For instance, why shouldn't homeowners know they have a leaky water pipe that's running up their water bill? It happens more than it should. This year, through the wireless water meter readers we're installing at properties across the city, they'll know, and they'll be able to fix problems before they become major drains on their finances. Why shouldn't somebody in the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, or Staten Island be able to hail a legal cab on the street? You know, 97% of our yellow cab pickups happen in Manhattan or at the airports. And even though 80% of New Yorkers live outside of Manhattan. This year, we'll establish a new category of livery cars that can make on-street pickups outside of Manhattan. It will give New Yorkers in all 5 boroughs another safe, reliable, and convenient option for getting around. Because whether you're standing on 42nd Street in Manhattan, or 42nd Street in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, or 42nd Street in Sunnyside, Queens, you ought to be able to hail a cab. At the heart of simplicity is the belief that government should make it easier to live and work in New York, not stand in the way. In the year ahead, we'll launch online forums where every city employee and every New Yorker can post ideas that he or she thinks will improve services or save the city money. Others will be able to comment on those proposals, and then we'll implement the best ones. This is our kind of open call for ideas, or crowdsourcing as it's called. And crowdsourcing has helped cutting-edge companies like Facebook and Netflix improve services and save money. And with more than 8.4 million people in our crowd, imagine what we can come up with. Saving money is a critical part of simplicity, and we're going to need every penny. Because right now, we're spending more and more on pensions, health care benefits, and other unfunded mandates. And that leaves us less and less to spend on the services and investments that are so crucial to our economy. We will continue cutting budgets, but to reduce the pain New Yorkers feel, we're going to need some help from Albany. Let me tell you about Albany. In the 1970s, after years of fiscal mismanagement, the city was forced to ask Albany to step in and manage its affairs. Today, after years of responsible management, we have a different request of Albany. Let us manage ourselves. Let us manage areas that should be matters of local policy, not state laws. And let us achieve the savings that would result. Let us save tens of millions of dollars on our workforce by reforming the antiquated civil service laws that stifle innovation and add unnecessary costs. Let us save money on our legal bills, prohibiting people who are harmed in accidents from suing the city for millions of dollars if the city is not primarily at fault or not at fault at all. That costs taxpayers more than $30 million a year. Let us save money on our administrative costs by letting the city's Department of Finance Administration administer city income tax collection, instead of paying the state an absurdly highly inflated rate to do so. That would save us tens of millions of dollars more. Let us save tens of millions of dollars on procurement costs by freeing us from overly restrictive rules that force us to buy inferior products. Let us save more than $100 million a year in wasted education spending by capping the amount of time a teacher can spend in the absent teacher reserve pool. Right now, it can stretch on for years. And this year, as it stands now, we'll have to fire teachers so we can pay those who don't have full-time teaching jobs. It's just ridiculous. Most important of all, allow us to reform our pension system to make it both fair for workers and taxpayers. This year, we will spend $7 billion on pension costs, up from $1.5 billion in 2001. That means this year, the average New York City tax filer will be paying $2,400 more to cover pension costs than they did back then. And next year, we'll be paying even more. If all consumer prices had gone up at the same rate as the price of our pensions, the subway fare would be $7.05 this year and $8.39 next year for the same service we're getting now. New Yorkers can't afford those subway fares, and we certainly can't afford pension costs at that level either. Now, I've always believed city workers deserve a safe and secure retirement. But right now, they receive retirement benefits that are far more generous than those received by most workers in the private sector, and that provide for a much earlier retirement age. It would be great if we could continue to afford such generous benefits, but we can't. The only way to protect pensions for our city workers, including our police officers and firefighters, teachers, sanitation workers, and corrections officers, is to reform the system so that we can afford it and at the same time afford the vital services that New Yorkers want and depend on. We have proposed and pushed pension reform before, and we have achieved some improvements, particularly with the United Federation of Teachers. But now we must go further and capitalize on the reform agenda that Governor Cuomo has brought to Albany. Governor Cuomo campaigned on pension reform, and he will have our full support. In the weeks ahead, we will make pension reform our #1 priority in Albany. And today, I'm glad to announce that a great New Yorker has agreed to take up our cause, Mayor Ed Koch. Last year, Ed formed a group, New York Uprising, that convinced the majority in both houses of the state legislature and Governor Cuomo to pledge their support for redistricting reform, something I strongly support too. This year, Ed will expand his crusade, and if you know Ed, he won't do it quietly. Thank you, Ed. Working with Ed and our partners in state government, we will work to pass several basic reforms to bring our pension system into the 21st century. First, we can save $8 million a year right off the bat by consolidating pension systems, an administrative reform that will not affect benefits at all. Second, we'll seek a new tier for employees hired in the future that would raise the retirement age to 65 for non-uniform workers. That would produce billions of dollars in long-term savings and bring our retirement age in line with the private sector, even as we offer far more generous benefits. I want to protect our existing workers, but we just cannot afford for new workers to pay these kinds of benefits. We can also save another $200 million every year by eliminating for future uniform retirees what is effectively a $12,000 annual bonus, paid on top of full pension benefits every year around the holidays. City taxpayers just cannot be expected to give substantial holiday bonuses when so many of them are out of work or having their own wages frozen or cut. The third piece of our pension reform would overturn the state law that prohibits the city from negotiating pensions as part of the collective bargaining process. Pension and health care benefits are a substantial part of a city employee's compensation, and so it only makes sense that they should be part of the collective bargaining process. Right now, state elected officials are setting pension benefits for city workers and sticking another group, city taxpayers, with a bill. Again, our message to Albany is, we pay the bills, but let us get better prices. And the only ways we'll be able to afford raises for city workers in the future is if we can find some savings in our pension and health care bills. And that's not a negotiating strategy or stance. It's a reality. And so today, I will make this commitment. I will not sign a contract with salary increases unless they are accompanied by reforms in benefit packages that produce the savings we need to continue making investments in our future and protecting vital services, period. Altogether, the reforms we are asking of Albany would allow us to save billions of dollars in the years ahead and continue making the investments that we need to strengthen our neighborhoods and our economy. We understand how serious Albany's situation is, and we're not asking them to spare us from budget cuts. We're willing to do our part to close their deficit. We're part of the state. But we are asking them to ensure those cuts are fair and to give us the ability to save money so we can offset some of those cuts. That is our ask. And we will package these reforms together into a financial reform bill that will put our financial house in order, not just for the years to come, but not just for this year, but for the years to come as well. It's the single most important thing we can do for our city's future, and this is the year we must do it. If Albany doesn't vote this bill, we'll face even more severe cuts and layoffs, and that will harm our ability to invest in our economy and create jobs, and we just can't allow that to happen. We've been kicking the can down the road for too long. Now's the time we've got to face reality. And there's one more piece of our legislative agenda that is critical to our future, and I want to mention today that it concerns education. Our new school's chancellor, Kathy Black, has a deep understanding of the skills our students need to succeed in the job market. That's why I picked her. She knows that first-rate teachers are the key to success. But this year, if we are forced to lay off teachers, we will be forced to lay off some of the most effective and keep some of the least effective. State law says that the last ones to be hired, no matter how good they are, must be the first ones to go. By not allowing schools to take merit into account, the state would not only deprive our children across the city of great teachers, it would increase class size because more teachers need to be laid off for the same amount of savings since the newest teachers get paid lower salaries. It's not right, it's not fair, and it's not something we can allow to happen. We've made too much progress. Our kids deserve better. Our parents and taxpayers deserve better. Our teachers deserve better. We've got to change the law and change it this year. The last major area I want to touch on today underlies everything else, and that is the centerpiece of our efforts to continue growing the economy and creating jobs: public safety. Over the last 9 years, we've driven crime down 35%. We've done it through innovative new law enforcement strategies that have focused on preventing crime. We are not giving up 1 inch in that battle, but we want to take it to the next level. And we will launch a comprehensive new effort to prevent young people from getting off track and keep them connected to family, schools, and jobs. For instance, we know that truancy is an early warning sign of trouble. So this year, we will double the number of volunteer school mentors who are currently helping over 2,000 students overcome chronic absenteeism. We also know that summer jobs lead to high school graduation and college. So this year, we'll make up for cuts in federal funding to summer youth employment by raising private money that will put thousands of young New Yorkers into jobs that can change their lives forever. And as part of our fatherhood initiative, we'll construct 3 new family centers on Rikers Island to provide incarcerated fathers more opportunity to spend time with their visiting children, so that their time apart doesn't become a lifetime, and hopefully that connection will also impart some tough life lessons to those kids. We can't keep every young person out of trouble, but we can do some more to get them back on track. And this year, we'll work with the Judiciary and the Center for Court Innovation and the district attorneys to develop a youth justice center that will handle delinquency and criminal cases for young people up to the age of 21, engaging the community in preventing crimes. Prevention makes so much more sense than having to go after the bad guys. We will also work with Governor Cuomo and our partners in Albany to overhaul the state's juvenile detention system so we can keep more young offenders in supervised, secure programs close to their homes and families instead of hundreds of miles away upstate. We know we can do a better job of helping young offenders turn away from a life of crime, and if Albany will allow us, we will. One of the best ways we can prevent crime from occurring is listening to community members. This year, we'll expand a promising partnership that began several months ago when a group of Brooklyn clergy members approached the NYPD with a proposal. Tell us more about the violence in our communities, like where and when it occurs, and we'll help you eradicate it. Now, more information is flowing back and forth from precinct to pulpit and reverse. That's truly good news. This year, we'll also conduct a pilot program to bring more mental health services right into the jails as a way to help those inmates with mental illness and reduce violence among them. 11 days ago in Arizona, we saw the horror that can result from mental illness and drug abuse. We must pledge ourselves not only to do more for the mentally ill, but to do more to keep guns out of the hands of people who by federal law should not have them. Our bipartisan Mayor's Coalition Against Illegal Guns has been working to close gaps in the federal background check system, gaps that allowed both the Virginia Tech shooter and the Arizona shooter to buy guns. There's been a lot of focus in Washington lately about the Constitution, but we must remember that we have a duty to honor and uphold not only the Bill of Rights, but also our founding fathers' common purpose: to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty. And as long as we allow dangerous and deranged people to buy guns, the promise of a more perfect union will remain empty for the thousands of Americans who are murdered with guns every year. We just cannot ignore that reality. We cannot accept that defeat. This cuts to the core of who we are as a country. We must continue fighting for gun policies that protect innocent Americans, no matter what the politics are, and we will. As we find new ways to crack down on crime of every kind, we're forming a new domestic violence rapid response team here on Staten Island with District Attorney Dan Donovan. We're going to mine financial data to stop those who engage in mortgage fraud. We'll also expand our efforts battling a threat that, as we saw all too clearly in 2010, remains very much with us: the threat of terrorism. The NYPD is building the most comprehensive counterterrorism system in the world. And now, as we prepare to open the World Trade Center site to the public for the first time in a decade, we'll take the next step. Last year, we signed an agreement with the Port Authority that gave the NYPD a lead role in the security of the World Trade Center complex. This year, we'll begin staffing the World Trade Center Command within the NYPD's Counterterrorism Bureau. And by September 11, 2011, more than 100 NYPD police personnel will be securing the area as thousands of visitors return to the site for the first time in 10 years. The transformation taking place at the World Trade Center site is a powerful reminder of our city's determination not just to remember, but to rebuild and to renew. And as I close, I think it's a reminder we also feel here in St. George. It's that feeling of optimism and opportunity that has always defined our city. Just 6 weeks before this theater opened in 1929, Wall Street had crashed and the Depression laid ahead. And yet, throughout it all, this theater survived. It survived a world war. It survived competition from new technology like television. It even survived years of mismanagement and abandonment. And because people came together, strong, united, and determined, a family, the business community, city government, now this place not only survives, it thrives today, tomorrow, and forever. And that, I truly believe, is the state of our city. Strong, united, determined, and ready to meet any challenge today, tomorrow, and forever. Thank you very much.